Hello, my name is Kathleen Leary, and I'm the Dance Education Coordinator at the Jerome Robbins Dance Division at the Library for the Performing Arts. My background is originally as a freelance costume designer, and then I taught costume design for about 5 years. And then now I am a museum educator. I specialize in object-based facilitation of performing arts archival objects with pre-K through 12th grade students. I've been at the library for about 5 years, and I would like to introduce my colleague, Emma Rose Brown.
Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Emma, as Kathleen said, and I use she, her pronouns. I have light brown hair, and I'm a white woman wearing an oversized blue button down in a brown wingback chair. I work primarily at the intersections of the two fields of dance and oral history. What that means is that I'm a performer and choreographer when there isn't a global pandemic going on, and I'm an active member of the downtown dance community in New York, which primarily represents kind of experimental and improvisational forms. I've been assisting in producing the Dance Oral History Project here at the library for the last 5 years, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. But that really got me started in the field of oral history, and I went on to work for an organization called Oral History Summer School that teaches adult learners about oral history in upstate New York, and I run the archive there. Thanks, Kathleen.
You're welcome. I'd also like to verbally describe myself before we continue. I am a white woman in my mid-40s. I am sitting in a room with a white background behind me, and I am in contrast in a dark navy blue or black shirt. I can never tell the difference. And it has lace cutouts on the shoulder. I have short blonde graying hair, and I also have pink glasses on. I am wearing a headset with an attached mic as well. Today, we are going to tell you a little bit about the history of the Jerome Robbins Dance Division and why it and the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts are such special places. We will show you how to get documents delivered to you without a library card, and we'll also show you how to schedule a virtual appointment with a librarian. We'll do an activity with the digital collection site, and then I will turn it over to Emma so she can talk more about the Dance Oral History Project and how to access their materials outside of the library. Then we would be happy to take questions. So now I'm going to share my screen to present. Okay. So today we're going to be exploring unique teaching tools with members of the Jerome Robbins Dance Division at the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, both Emma and myself. This is, pardon me, this is the picture of our library, and to describe this photo, it has it's a photo of buildings, and on one side there is a building that has kind of slanted white and grayish marble, and the building is kind of in vertical slats. And then on the right side of the photograph, there is a sandy colored building that kind of goes over the top of a shorter building, and that is the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts. We are on Lincoln Center's campus, sandwiched in between the Met Opera on our left and the Lincoln Center Theater on our right. Also in the right-hand side of the photo, kind of coming into the photo from that right-hand side, is a sculpture by the artist Alexander Calder, and it's called The Ticket Taker. And it is tall enough that some people, including myself, can walk under. So that can tell you the scale. And then the ground is kind of a sandy brick, large bricks, and they are going on a lengthwise. So then they're almost taking you right into the library. And the Library for the Performing Arts, the building itself is all glass front windows with kind of lines or separating lines in between each pane. And in the left, there's a big red poster that says the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, with dance and theater listed below. And you can see people going into the space. And so again, located on Lincoln Center's campus, and it's a perfectly fit place for our library because of the materials that we have in it. And on the first floor, we have exhibit spaces and a place to check out books. We are Some People's local branch. The second floor has circulating items only in dance, theater, music, and film. And then the third floor has our special collections areas. And then this next photo is something that's new that I wanted to highlight. And this is for New Yorkers, for everyday visits, or also for people coming to the city. We now have an outdoor space on our terrace. So these photos are of our outdoor space, and the photo to the left is showing a long cement area with a, on the right-hand side, there is a cement railing going all the way around, as kind of a square shape. And then straight in front is a big pillar, and there are book carts, and then to the right, or excuse me, to the left is a table that just is protruding just a little bit, and that's where our circulation staff sits. And then the photo to your right is the long length of where we have places where people can sit in programs. And the day that I took it, it was stormy, so we didn't have any of our big egg chairs outside, but we have comfortable places to sit and converse and read and eat lunch. And so that railing that I talked about in the photo continues on that right side, and along kind of spaced evenly are turquoise blue, almost like those papasan chairs. I wanted to tell you about this URL. It is the URL that will take you to everything and a good starting place for the New York Public Library system. It is a large system. We have 92 branches, 3 research areas and buildings. And so we are under that umbrella, and each one has kind of its own specific place and mandate, but this URL will take you there. I have added the /LPA because we're going to go just directly to the Library for the Performing Arts site. So this is our site. You can go there by, again, going to NYPL /locations/LPA, or just nypl.org/LPA, and get there real quick. And as you can see, we've got all sorts of information. We've got the dates and times that we're open. We just have started opening our circulating areas again, and have our reserve and our research areas by appointment. So it's very exciting for us. We're very happy to have that back. So we have all sorts of interesting information. We're going to talk about this in just a second, how to get that appointment. And we've got the outdoor reading room advertised. So this is where you're going to find all of our kind of newer things. We have tech kits for performing artists that can be checked out with a library card, public programs. I love our blogs, and you can read them from anywhere in the United States, the world. They're on our website, and they either are written by people that have a certain interest in performing arts, and then they're attaching it to an archival object, or our librarians are also, these rabid fans of materials as well, and so we will write things that are attached and about a specific archival object. And then we've got all sorts of other options over here, including our annual report, if that's something of interest. If you go to the next tab right here, we've got visit and we've got research. You're going to go over there, and we'll have the headings for all of the different divisions here. And you can click on each one, go into each one, and see how to access our collections that way. And I apologize, my computer is not behaving with my not showing tabs. Oh, there we go again. There it is. There we go. Just to let you know, some things that and functions that we have and things that we are, the library are, we are a museum. We have 3 exhibit spaces. And what we like to do is we like to take archival objects from our 3rd floor and put them together in new and interesting ways. So that could be whether it is for something that is historical or something that is historical, but then ends up having, cultural relevance now. I think that those make some of the best exhibits. So we do that and are on a rotating basis. And of course, with the pandemic, we have been doing virtual work in that as well. We're also a performance space. When we are open to the public, we have a 200-seat auditorium called the Bruno Walter, but we've also, of course, transitioned online, and we have so many programs, and you can see that if you go to the main webpage, there's a place for events, and you can put in your query and you can find events for the New York Public Library, and specifically the Dance Division. We have several of those. We are an active collecting institution, so the collecting is never closed. We're always asking new people, creating new relationships, people that want to preserve their legacy. We're always interested in that. And then 2 elements of our active collecting is that are very important are relate to moving image, because in many ways that's the best way to see the performing arts. So under the theater division, we have what's known as TOFT, that's theater on film and tape, and you can see regional and Broadway shows that we have taped. And then we also have our own original documentation department within the dance division that was started in 1967 by Jerome Robbins to collect and then also go out and film new projects. We're also stewards of performing arts legacy and collective memory. I always like to ask this rhetorical question, and it will be rhetorical because I can't hear you today. But where does this material go after you see a performance? Where does it? How can we recreate it if it just lives in your mind? So we work really hard to collect choreographic notation, costume designs, a manuscript material, newspaper clippings, photographs, in order to then have that permanent record. Some of the collections that we have at the Library for the Performing Arts are, of course, the Jerome Robbins collection, the Martha Swope photograph collection. There's a costume designer for both dance and theater. Her name is Willa Kim, and we have her materials. Jerry Bach, who wrote the lyrics for Fiddler on the Roof. And then also we have the collection of Bill T. Jones, which is a newer acquisition. The dance division began in 1944, and it was started in the music division at the main library downtown. Many of you probably know that from the lions there. Those are the iconic figures in the front there. And the music division had a small collection of dance materials, and the head of the music division, his name was Carlton Sprague Smith. He knew that these needed their own cultivation and care, and also to ask people from the dance community to kind of invest in this project. And he needed someone that was interested in dance and then also interested in librarianship that could get this work done. And so he employed a woman named Genevieve Oswald, who was in her 20s at the time, and asked her to take care of this material. And she started slowly building up contacts, slowly gathering the material, figuring out ways to preserve. And by 1965, when this building, the New York Public Library for the Performing Arts, was built, theater, music came over as divisions, and then the dance collection became the dance division. And Genevieve Oswald became the first female head of a division in the New York Public Library system. So we're very, very proud of that. We've had 5 curators, and all women. And so it's an amazing feat. That people have lasted that long and really have invested themselves in that work. We are the largest collection of dance materials in the entire world, and our collection includes several things I just mentioned, of course, moving image. So we have film, we have DVDs, we have VHS, and film and filming things and dance in the 20th century really grew up together. And so we have all sorts of formats of footage. We have rare books. The oldest book that we have is from the 1460s, and that is actually the oldest book in the Library for the Performing Arts. So, and it's in the dance department. We have ephemera, so that's newspaper clippings and class schedules, thank you notes, all the things that surround the performer and their life as people within the performing arts. We also have a spoken word collection, which of course Emma will be speaking about later. And I've been a little remiss. I have not told you about these wonderful photographs that are to the left. You know, these beautiful photographs that were taken by the photographer Carl Van Vechten. They are all on digital collections. And at the end, if one of you would like to remind me, I'll put Carl Van Vechten's name into the chat so we can spell it correctly so you can get there. But they're full of literary, dance, and theatrical luminaries that he brought to his studio. So I wanted to show a couple things that you can use outside of the library, and especially people that are in New York State that can help them acquire materials. So we want you to be able to go and get a library card, and you can do that online. So we've gone directly to this site to apply for a library card. We don't have, ats in our URL, so it's nypl.org/library-card. And you can apply for a library card here. You can apply for one for your children. And an online library card, again, is for people who are in New York State. But do not worry. If you come to the library without a card, we can definitely help you get that taken care of. Not a worry on that. And then the other thing I'd like to show you is our legacy catalog. It can be accessed anywhere because it is an open platform. And that, again, is legacycatalog.nypl.org. And we have it works just like kind of a search engine where you put in, and it's a keyword search, put anything that you like, and then and you'll see our results there. I also like to use advanced search. That's another place to go for a keyword search that's very helpful. But these you can do all your looking at home, and then if you're visiting or if you are in New York, you can just jump right into research when you come here and really use your time wisely. Okay. And the last thing I wanted to show you are LibGuides. So it's libguides.nypl.org. We're sensing a theme. And I took us to this page because I wanted to show all the different places where we have LibGuides. LibGuides are items that are records that are created by librarians on specific subjects to ease the process of research, kind of these little shortcuts. And they are usually topic specific, and especially here they are. So we have items from African American and African diaspora studies, specifically for performing arts. We have the Billy Rose Theater Division. The Jerome Robbins Dance Division has a large collection of LibGuides. The Music Division does as well, Schaumburg. And so feel free to scan through those and then ask questions of your librarian at the time. Want to show you how to make a LibCal appointment. And you're gonna, I'm gonna click on that again, and you can book a consultation at libcal.nypl.org/appointments/LPA. It has all the information on booking a consultation, and it also has which division you'd like to book in. You can also get all of that information. Now, don't worry about having to write all these things down. I have a resource sheet that we'll send out with ending materials after this presentation in order for you to be able to just go quickly to these links. So don't worry about that at all. Next thing we're going to do is go to electronic document delivery. So you can get a special collections material photographed for you anywhere in the United States and in the world. We will accept any request for this material. You just give your request. A call number is always helpful, but my recommendation is before even filling out this form to make a LibCal appointment to make sure you know exactly what you want, and then we can get it photographed for you, and then you'll have this research material at home. When you use this, these materials are just for research. They're not for putting out on the internet, all sorts of things. So just keeping that in mind, that we're doing the service specifically for research. But in order to do this, you don't need a library card, and so I think that's another thing to point out. just to keep this in mind, that it does take a while to get the material because it's so popular. That's another reason why I would recommend doing a LibCal appointment, because in some ways that might be a quicker option. So I want to talk about digital collections, our wonderful digital collections. I wanted to show a specific collection just to kind of show the range of things that you can find when we talk about our digital collections portal. And so I chose Romeo and Juliet, of course, because of performing arts. So the first thing that we have here is we have Hugh Lang and Alicia Makarova, and they are doing these Carl Van Vechten tableaus. I just imagine being in his studio, and he's like, "Why don't you pose this way, and I'm going to put this backdrop up." And they're so Hugh Lang is as Romeo, and Alicia as Juliet. And so you in these photos, just to give you a description there, the first photo on the left-hand side, Hugh is kind of leaning forward and has one arm, his right arm down and his left arm up, and is looking longingly at Alicia as Juliet, and then she's got her head turned back toward him, and both arms are up. In the second photo, we have them nearly kissing in an embrace, and in the third photo, he is looking at her hand, and she is kind of looking off away to the right there. So we have this as part of items for Romeo and Juliet. This is a wonderful item. This is a collection of set designs that Salvador Dali did for the 1943 ballet of Romeo and Juliet. And he, of course, and what I would expect true Dali fashion, sat in the middle and created these set designs. And then for some reason, it was seemed too lavish or not right or whatever. So Eugene Berman actually got the job and did the costume and set designs for Romeo and Juliet for that production. And they are pencil sketch drawings, and they're different scenes. So the one to the top left is it looks like the courtyard area, and the top right, this looks like the kind of mausoleum area, and then the lower left is the bedroom, and then the lower right is kind of the place, I think, where Juliet is laid when she's laid to rest. These are photos, these are location shots that Martha Swope took of the 1961 movie West Side Story. And this would have been around 1960. And in this general area of Lincoln Center, maybe a little bit north and west of here. And Jerome Robbins employed her to take some behind the scenes shots. And we have dozens of these. And then she also did the promo photos, and then she also did the rehearsal photos for the Broadway play as well. This is a prompt script for the 1957 play of West Side Story, and you can see, the lighting cues on one side and the lines on the other side. And then this is also from 1637, and this is part of a script of Romeo and Juliet, the play. And then the other thing, I just pulled this one item out, but what's cool is if you go to this page, you'll see all of the script has been digitized. And then these are really interesting. We have a lot of these. These are cigarette cards. Philip Morris, I guess, would put these in packs, and they were like baseball cards basically, and you could collect all of the different ones. And so this is a Romeo and Juliet version of Leslie Howard and Norma Shearer playing both of those roles. So I wanted to also show you some really fun, interesting, strange, and amazing digital collections items. This is the Claire Holt collection. She was a photographer and I would say an anthropologist going to Indonesia, and in the earlier part of the 20th century. And she took these wonderful photographs that you can go through and see all of those about dance and culture and ritual and costumes. So those are really fantastic. The next one that I love is the Ellis Island photographs. And these are done by Augustus Sherman, and they're all of these people in their native dress, just getting off of the ships and that kind of thing. And so I always love these just to look at and think about what they're thinking, where they're going, and I wonder how they ended up. We also have Doors of New York City, and I am always curious as to who was told to take these photos. And so we have doors all over the city, doors and doors and doors. And but it is interesting as, for architectural purposes, I think, to know different styles and that kind of thing. I can imagine that being very, very cool, very interesting in that respect. We also have this final collection, which we're going to use or later in our when we're working on our activities. And this is one of my favorites. It's the New York Shakespeare Festival collection. And these are photographs that were taken while people were watching Shakespeare outside. And they're just a great, great collection. And of people's emotions while they're watching theater, which I never get tired of. I wanted to show you, and I promise I'll stop toggling back and forth with this, because I know that can get a little hard on the eyes, but I wanted to show you how to use digital collections. So this is our digital collections portal. Again, no ats in our URLs. So it's digital collections, one word, .nypl.org. It works really like it works like using keyword search and like a Google search. One thing to keep in mind when you're using digital collections is that it is very unforgiving on misspellings. It will just not find something if you put an extra O in George Balanchine. It will not come up as George Balanchine. It's just the quirk of the system. And also, if you're teaching with these materials, you have to engineer an activity in order for, and if you're doing a searching activity, you have to engineer activity so then your students don't come up with the exact same items because, and I'll show you in a second, I'm going to put in a keyword that unless there's more material added under that subject heading, it doesn't get bumped in the configuration of the platform. And so you don't want all your students coming in with the same image, if that makes sense. So I'm going to put in this thing here on the search here, just ballet russe, click on that. And again, I've been using this as a search term for a couple of months, and because I love this photograph, and this will come up every time. So let me go back because my computer's a little sensitive, and I wanted to show you kind of what this page looks like. You can narrow down your search a little bit on this side with all of these kind of filters. You can also do it with filters up here. And then it shows all, and your search term is highlighted on all of these. And there are different spellings of ballet russe, and so you'll have ballet russe with an S, or not an S too. And then there's some. This is not something I'm super familiar with, but there's some different company names as well. So that's why it comes up in different ways. So this is a photograph that we have. These materials can be used for educational purposes. They're so wonderful in that respect. You can have your students research here. You can do research here. They're good for presentations, appendices, just general research, and then of course these activities that we're going to do in just a minute. So this photograph is obviously, you can leave it like this and say, okay, so what do you see in this photograph? Or you can go down here and you'll see that there is the title, Ballet Russe Dancers with Sergei Diaghilev standing in front of a train with luggage. That sounds like a title that was given by a librarian versus maybe what was written on the back or something like that, because of how specific it is. The other thing that's interesting is you can look on this side and you have what's known as the verso of that photograph. And then you could also zoom in and on your photograph, and you can zoom back out, and you can rotate it, you can print it. You can also download it here, and they're very high res. You can get an original scan, you can get an art print. So there are all sorts of things that you can do with that. Then here you have all of this material and all of this information on this photograph. Each of these are hyperlinked, so you could go to the general repository of photographs in digital collections if you'd like. You can go to items that are in digital collections that are just from 1925. Over here, you will see that you can put this up online. I believe that that's because of this date and it is out of copyright, so you can put it online. If you're ever going to put anything on social media from the library and from this collection, just shoot us a quick email, just so then we know that you're doing that. Because some things are not under copyright, some things are copyrighted just specifically for this site, and have different details on that. So you can go to more details and you can find out all sorts of information about this photograph. These are all hyperlinked, so you can find about everybody who's in the photograph. And then another thing to note, and I'll show you another place where you can find this. Well, let's go back to the top because that's where we were before, is cite this item. And you go down to the bottom here and it's got all of your citations. So that's really lucky. So you can see, we also have these down here, we have cite this item and we have item data there as well. So that gives you just a little idea of how to use digital collections. So feel free to look around. I hope you really enjoy that. Our emails are always our first last name, lowercase, at nypl.org. So these are our emails. I'll put them again in the chat. And then also we have it's always dance, music, or theater with an RE at nypl.org as well. So those are our emails, and then I will also give those to you later as well in the chat. Okay, so now I wanted to give you a couple ideas about how you can use digital collections to enhance your lesson plans. So I've got my screen up here. I'm sharing Padlet, which I'm sure many of you use many times. And there are a myriad of different platforms that you can use these materials and engage these materials. And I thought, well, let's try Padlet and see how that goes. And so we're going to use the links that I've put up for you, and we're gonna I'll have John put that in the chat just a second, and so you can interact with my specific Padlet. So to do these activities, we're going to use the photos from the New York Shakespeare Festival collection. And so John, if you wouldn't mind putting that link into the chat so that people have that, and maybe add it a couple times in there just so then people have that as we go along. So many of you probably know how to do this, but in order to make a Padlet, you go here. If you make one, there's all sorts of different things that you can change on the side at the little gear or share. There are wonderful tutorials online that you can feel free to look at those and interact with those, just so then you can kind of figure out how to do it and how it best works for you. So one of the activities, and you'll see them in my row here, one of the activities that I wanted to present was a scavenger hunt, and like when I'm going to say a beginning scavenger hunt. So go ahead and John, go ahead and put that URL in the chat there. I'll give you a few seconds to kind of get in there, and hopefully you're going to see everything that I see in my beginning scavenger hunt. And I wanted this to be something that you could use digital collections with younger students, say, pre-K, we could go even to third grade, and you could add a few modifications if you wanted to make it more advanced. You could also use these photos, in that for a match game or that kind of thing. And so I've selected a number of photos for us to look at, and so I'd like to see if we could kind of play this game a little bit and see if we could find these like if you were of this age, and find these photos as I call them out. I have prompts that I'm going to give you in just a second, and as you can see. There are ways to have people comment, but because we have 35 people, I thought, well, maybe that'll push everything down. But if you've got a smaller group, I think you could have people comment at the, using the pencil at the top. If you're in a virtual setting and you have kids that you're interacting with in a small class, they can unmute themselves and be like, I see this person, I see that, that kind of thing, and do the hunt verbally as well. So, but because I'm not seeing you today, I think we're just going to use, I did the like a little heart emoji thing. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to give you some prompts and say, can you find? And then I'm going to see if you can find these items. And when you found them, just click the heart, and we'll start to see those numbers go up. Okay. All right. So the first thing that I want you to find is a girl standing up and smiling. I see 7 hearts. Oh, good, good. 8. Oh man, it's going up. All right, good job. All right, I'd like you to find a woman feeding a baby. Oh, there, somebody found her. Yeah. Okay, one more. Let's do one more. How about people in the rain? Ah, I got 10 hearts on that one. Okay. Yeah, so this is something that you can play. And I think of course it always works better if there's a verbal communication with this, and people are sharing and excited and all that kind of stuff. So the other thing you can do is you can add context. You can stop and say, like, what do you think this little girl is thinking? Or what tool is that worker using? Or what does that sign say? And then maybe add a little context to that as well. Okay, so the next activity that I wanted to show you, I'm going to close this one out. And John, if you wouldn't mind putting up the KWL chart, that would be great. We're going to look at this one. And so of course, I'm sure all of you are familiar with these charts or something similar to that effect. And so what I did was I, put up these words here. What do you know? What do you wonder? And what have you learned? And then added the photo on one side. You'll note that if each individual person is, engaging with somebody else's Padlet, that you can open that photo and see it bigger, so you can look at it, have students look at it a little bit, and then fill it in these charts. And so, yeah, so I'm seeing people already start. So I'm totally excited because you guys know these, KWL. So what do you know? Currently, we just have information from the photograph. And I also am a big proponent of virtual thinking strategies. So you can always say, what do you see? What makes you say that? And what more can you find? And really have them dig into these photographs. So, and then we also have, and as we go, you guys know that, so feel free to start filling in, and then once with what you know and what you wonder, and then I have some context that I'd like to share with you, and then we'll fill in what you've learned. So great, yeah, keep going, keep giving these great ideas. Yep, it's Julius Caesar. Yeah, I think it's these really tend to be about observation a lot. Free event, yep, you're reading the posters, and really making sure what people have. And you've got, oh, thank you. This is a great tool. It really does kind of engage with people. So now let's talk about this, what you've learned. So I've seen this completed in the same class lesson. I've seen it in a later lesson if you want people to kind of like hang on to the contextual information that you're giving and then give it later. And or if you read the contextual information at the time, which we're going to do right now, it works for reading comprehension. So I'm going to read contextual information, and feel free to listen to it and maybe write down some thoughts, and then fill in that "what have you learned" category. Okay, so Shakespeare in the Park, formerly New York Shakespeare Festival, was the brainchild of producer Joseph Papp, originally Paprofsky, born in the Williamsburg section of Brooklyn in 1921. He had a wandering life, growing up poor and working various jobs from a young age, and even spent time in the Navy. Through Papp's early life, he was influenced by groups such as the Young Communist League, who would protest evictions by putting evicted families' furniture back in their apartments. He was surrounded by leftist thought in the neighborhood and almost went to Spain to fight against Franco in the 30s. These experiences stayed with him as he created a free Shakespeare theater. Joseph Papp always loved theater and Shakespeare. As a child, he spent a lot of time at the library, the New York Public Library, although he said that he didn't see much of a connection between the library and a structured school environment. He knew from personal experience that the communicating and understanding of Shakespeare was not tied to a level of schooling or a class level. He set out to prove this theory, beginning with performances in a small church and a theater on the Lower East Side. There was no money for actors, and the building was old and dirty, but they were able to get some money after performances by passing the hat, to the embarrassment of some of the actors, although it sometimes generated enough money for cab fare. This act was used against him later, perceived as a communist act because of its egalitarian qualities during his appearance in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee. In 1956, Joe Papp decided to find an outdoor space for his Shakespeare Theater workshop. Built in 1941 as a WPA project, the East River Amphitheater was scheduled to be torn down by the Parks Department, but Papp thought it was a perfect place for Shakespeare. The city let him use the amphitheater, and the first summer, the company performed Julius Caesar and Taming of the Shrew. At first, only local residents were interested in what was being rehearsed, although some of the local young people shouted and threw things at the performers. The solution? Put them to work as crew members. Press agent Merle Dubusky describes the eventual synergy between the audience and what was presented on stage. And this is a quote. So you had to cross over the FDR Bridge to get to the amphitheater, and people would start wandering across the footbridge while the sun was still up to see what this strange whatever it was. This was the first we saw of an attitude that characterized our audiences when we later went around the city with our mobile unit. It was summer. It was warm. It was unpleasant to stay in the house. It was an activity and obviously an entertainment. No one was being told what was good for them. It was free, and you could wander in. There was no impediment to your coming or your leaving. You had nothing to lose. These photos are a record of the audience members who viewed the performances at the East River Amphitheater in 1956, photographed by George E. Joseph. All right. And yeah, and this is, you guys are doing exactly what I hope you do. Great listening comprehension, accessible to everyone. First season of the Shakespeare in the Park, and 1956. And this could be a take-home activity. There's all sorts of ways that you could restructure it, and I thought of many other ways to present this too, because with these materials, it's just nearly impossible to not find something to engage with. So I wanted to be able to make sure that we had time for questions. So I do have some other examples, and I would be happy to put them in the resource packet. I just want to make sure that we have time to hear from my lovely colleague Emma about the Dance Oral History Project. So I'm going to go ahead and turn our talk over to Emma so she can talk about that.
Great. Thank you, Kathleen. That was fun. I had to participate. So before I talk about the Dance Oral History Project, I actually just want to talk a little bit about the word oral history, not just because of this talk, but I feel like in the last many years, and also maybe this last year in particular, the word is kind of gaining some momentum. So I just want to talk about how I define it. Um, so my definition comes from the Oral History Association to some extent. So oral history is a field of study and method to collect, preserve, and interpret the voices and memories of people and communities. And so, like I said, that comes from the Oral History Association, which is a professional association that meets yearly at a conference and keeps up to date with changing technology and ethical concerns and the changing methodology of oral history, which is really constantly evolving. And that's relevant because I'm going to tell you about our project, which is almost 50 years old. So the change over time is quite relevant in our project. So based on that definition of oral history, not every interview or sound recording is an oral history, according to that definition. And I say that too because, like Kathleen said, spoken word being one of our genres, one of our types of materials in the library, we have many audio materials, and a subset of that is the Dance Oral History Project. So some of the tenets of that methodology and of oral history, I just want to mention a few, include kind of open-ended questions. So that makes it distinct from something like a journalistic interview where someone might be asking you a really specific question that has like a yes or no answer. Handing authority over to the interviewee or the narrator is another tenet of oral history, as opposed to maybe a researcher writing a book who considers themselves kind of the expert and is pulling information. So in oral history, we think of the person being interviewed as the expert, and also the intention to do no harm. So changing your method depending on the situation in order to make it not a harmful situation for your subject or community. So like I said, the Dance Oral History Project is a distinct collection within the division and then the audio archive. And so it's this subset, and it's about, at this point, 500 or so interviews. I'm not sure after this year where we're going to be. We recorded a lot of interviews this year. So the project was initiated in 1974. So it's coming up on 50 years, and it was initiated with guidance from the Columbia Oral History Program, which was the first archive of oral histories in the country and also academic program around oral history. And our collection really started in an attempt to interview these kind of 8 grand giants of dance, and specifically of ballet, I would say. This included Frederick Ashton, George Balanchine. It also included Martha Graham, the one kind of modern dance luminary represented, and then a few others. And then from those 8 interviews, associates of those 8 people were interviewed. So whether that be their dancers, their collaborators, and an example of that is Isamu Noguchi, who was interviewed in relation to Martha Graham, having worked with her as a set and costume designer. And we're going to listen to a little of his interview in a bit, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So since the initiation of the project, we have recorded interviews with choreographers and dancers, not just of ballet and modern, but across a wide array of fields, and we're ever expanding that in an attempt to fill in gaps left by the historical record and by the first producers of this project. And not only dancers and choreographers, but dance historians, writers, administrators, technical artists, so that's set costume lighting, or other collaborative artists. And it's the object of the project, like I kind of mentioned, to be as it exists within a library, which isn't true of all oral history projects. So our intention is to kind of amend the existing holdings. Kathleen mentioned all of these different kinds of things that we have in the library, and creating, producing audio documentations based on what we have and what we're missing. So maybe we have a collection come in, and we want to create a kind of complement to that collection by interviewing the person whose collection it was. Or maybe we have no materials on a certain dance style, and we don't see any coming. And so one way to generate materials on that dance style is to interview that community. That is true for us right now of the hip hop and street dance community. We're doing an extensive oral history project led by members of that community to amend the gap in our collection. And audio interviews are really special and can kind of provide like a different perspective than a biography or a memoir or a video recording, this kind of first person narrative. And who do we interview? I've mentioned some criteria, but some other criteria is usually New York City based. That's expanding a little bit, but even with the international remote interviews we're doing right now during the pandemic, they still have a connection or an origin point in New York. Another criteria is stories that are at risk. So if the person is older or ill, in the 90s, we initiated a AIDS oral history project to collect voices that we didn't know were going to be around for much longer. And I'll talk about it a little bit more, but we also currently are doing a kind of more open submission COVID-19 project. So let's see, I want to show you some of these names. So I'm going to share my screen. There you go. So this is the first place that you can go to learn and listen about the Dance Oral History Project. So it's nypl.org/oral-history-project-dance. And you can get here also from the Jerome Robbins page, but also if you just search Dance Oral History Project, it's the first link, which is very exciting. So a lot of what I just talked about is here. And I wanted to show you, we have this list of oral history project participants, and it's not up to date for this. It's more up to date than 2015, but it's not up to date from the last 2 years. But if you're curious who some of our oral authors, which is another way of talking about an interviewee, oral author, here's our list. And we'll add the last 2 years on here soon. And here you can also click and get to the catalog record of that interview and figure out how to listen to it. So this is just at the library if you wanted to listen to it. And our catalog records are pretty great and often give really extensive summaries. So you could read the summary beforehand and decide if you want to go in and listen to that hour or two. So I just wanted to show you that. And we're also, you're welcome to write to us if you have associations with dance and you feel like we're missing somebody or some community, please write to us. So the first way I want to show you how you can do some listening and the link is right here, and this links to the digital collections that Kathleen has showed us a few times, but this link is specifically to almost 60 full-length interviews that are streaming in digital collections, and we are adding to this, and so we should be up to 100, 150 soon. And like I said, because the collection started in 1974 and we inherited it, Cassie May is the current producer, and she's kind of the 4th or 5th formal producer of the project, but we've also inherited all these different kinds of release forms, and copyright is very important at the library, and many of these early interviews, their release forms didn't mention anything about the internet because the internet was not. And so we're having to do work in reaching out to these participants or their heirs to be sure that streaming online is something that they're comfortable with. So we're not going to put an interview streaming online until we have that permission, but we're adding more and more. So here are the 58 that you can currently listen to, streaming on digital collections. And I just wanted to listen to a few minutes of one of these early recordings from 1979 with you. And that's Isamu Noguchi, whose Sculpture Garden and Museum is in Queens, New York. If you ever get a chance to go over there, I think it costs $8. And so let's do a little listening. And if you want to write in the chat any thoughts you have.
Tobias on January 17th in his studio home, Sculpture Garden, with snow coming down.
Yeah, it's suddenly become white.
Shall we begin by talking about the theater?
As you wish.
Was your work for Graham your first work in the theater or not?
Yes, the first thing I'd ever done for the theater was called Frontiers for Graham in 1935. I had known her for some time previously. In fact, I had done 2 heads of her in 1929. At that time, I had returned from 2 years with the Guggenheim Fellowship in Paris. I was born in 1904, so I was 22 in 1927 and 23 in 1928, and in 1929 I must have been 24. So I did my first heads of Martha Graham when I was 24 years old.
How did you come to know her?
Well, actually, I had met her first a few years prior to that, about 1926 perhaps, maybe 25 or 26, when she was teaching at the John Murray Anderson Dance School. And I had a friend there, Michio Ito, who was a Japanese dancer, who became quite famous in Europe. You may or not know about him, and had danced with, I believe, Pavlova and so on, you know, and he was a friend of Yeats and Pound and all those people. In fact, there's a book of Pound, a translation of the Women of Trachis, which is dedicated to him, and with the hope that it will be produced as a no play. And this is something that I was subsequently asked to do and never got around to doing it. I still would like to do it, you know. It's another of those transformation things which I'm interested in. Anyway, that's how I met Martha Graham, through Ito Michio. And then she had a studio around the corner from me, and when I had a studio on the top of Carnegie Hall. She had a place on 56th Street. And so I used to go and watch her dance classes, and then she asked me to do this set called Frontiers.
Do you remember your first encounter with her, when you first met her?
She was giving these class up at the John Murray Anderson School.
Do you remember your first sight of her?
Yes, I do. I mean...
How did she strike you?
Well, severe and gaunt, and that was her first impression. I mean, I saw her actually dance before, you know, in the interim, sometime in the interim, I did see her dance.
I'm going to pause it. It's always hard to stop, hard to find a place to stop. So this interview, as you can see, there were 4 tracks recorded on reel to reel. A lot of our interviews are quite long, and we currently record 3 to 4 2-hour sessions. So some of our interviews can be as long as 8 hours long, which is a really extensive life history interview. and you can really learn a lot from an individual interview. I want to introduce from this the idea of the listening party, which is a very common oral history thing to do, which is get together, and this could be in your classroom, and just listen. Lie down on the ground, sit in some bean bags, maybe eat some snacks, listening to first person, also listening to an older recording that sounds like it's from a different time. Just that in and of itself can be really profound and magical. And then having a discussion about what you heard afterwards, which we won't do now, but I highly recommend. And so we have these 50 to 60 interviews, and like I said, there's going to be more being added. One other place you can do some listening, so I'm back on the Dance Oral History Project page, is this playlist that we've started. And this is of more recent interviews that we've recorded, and they're clips. So we've pulled kind of 3 to 5 minute clips from interviews, given a little context, and we're going to be adding to this playlist. So clips are also a great way to kind of get a little taste of an interview if you're nervous about committing to a long interview, or sometimes also interviews start kind of slow. Noguchi started not that slow. They kind of got into it pretty quick, but sometimes it's hard to get grabbed by an interview at the beginning when someone's just introducing themselves. So clips are a great way of doing that. And these newer interviews sound pretty different than those older interviews. So I'm going to play another little part of an interview. I want to play Maurice Hines, who you may know. You may know of his brother Gregory Hines, well-known actor and dancer, starred in White Nights with Mikhail Baryshnikov. So this is a few years ago. I assisted in producing this interview with Tony Vogue, head of the American help me, Kathleen, tap dance.
American Tap Dance Foundation.
Tap Dance Foundation, that's it. And so they're talking about Sophisticated Ladies, which is a show that Maurice, you'll hear, did for Gregory.
So we're going to go back to Sophisticated Ladies, because then there was that, well, you tell me about.
Well, Sophisticated Ladies is very interesting. There's a story about that. Because when Gregory said he was gonna do a tour or something, and they said, who are we gonna get? He said, you got to get Maurice, because he could do 8 shows a week, because Gregory was having back problems by that time, and Maurice will do 8 shows a week. He said, well, is he tap like you? He said, what? He was furious when they said, you're not actually saying that my brother is not talented as I am, are you? You're not saying that. And they were. He said, yeah, okay. Just get him here. And when Gregory went on tour, he went to LA. He said, Maurice will keep this show running. First of all, Maurice's tempos are going to be much faster than mine. He's coming in here, baby. Maurice don't like these slow tempos. So he will lift the show. Sure enough, when I got there rocking the rhythm, I said, what is this, a soft shoe? I didn't know what Gregory had told them. I said, you got to speed this rocking the rhythm up. And Judith loved it because she had a pin in her hip and the slow tempos were hurting her. So this way she didn't have to kick as high because the tempos were too fast. So Gregory told them, Marie's going to come and he's going to redesign the show. You watch. Judith said, well, I hope he does something with rocking the rhythm. He said, don't worry about it. So I told Mercer, when we first did the rehearsal, Gregory was dying because he knew. I said, Mercer, he said, da 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 da. I said, Mercer, let's speed that up. Da 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 da. Judith was in the wing. She went like this. Oh, thank God. And I didn't know all this was going on.
Yeah, right.
At my tempo.
I'm going to pause it. Maurice is a fast talker, and we got a whole 8 hours with him. So I recommend that interview. And we've also to say we did a kind of tap dance specific set of interviews these last 3 or 4 years and have been collecting quite a number of tap dance interviews, if that's an interest to you or your class. And so I just want to show one more way to access these interviews or to participate in our project. So like I said, we initiated this kind of sub-project during this year called the COVID-19 Dance Worker Narratives Project. And it's a way for anyone, anyone in the dance community or anyone who knows someone in the dance community to submit an interview to the project, and it will be part of digital collections. So you can submit, you can interview a dance person that you know and submit it through this portal. All the instructions are here. Here's the submissions. So submit it through here, and you too could be part of digital collections. And I wanted to show this also because as an open submission platform for an oral history project, I give kind of a really short way to structure an oral history project of your own, talking about here's the intention of the project, which was really to capture the experiences at this moment of dance workers. It's such a unique moment for everyone in the world, and it's a unique moment for the dance community. And whether that's because a lot of dancers are no longer dancers after this year, or have found really creative ways to do their work. So this was a unique moment to hear from people. I give some examples of good open-ended questions, and then here are step-by-step instructions. So this talks about kind of tech concerns and ways you want to kind of frame your project. Introduces the idea of the lead statement, which we didn't hear on that Toby Tobias interview, but introducing the audio recording for what it is. So I recommend you using this as a way to structure your own project or to participate in ours. And again, this is the site, and searching Dance Oral History Project, you can get to all the links that I talked about. So I'm going to pass it back over to Kathleen.
Great. Thank you so much, Emma. I wanted to leave a few minutes or a little time for questions, but first I wanted to thank you for being with us today. One of the lasting impressions that I've had while working at the library is how many times that I read that the New York Public Library has had an impact on people as children, and then they go to do fantastic things as adults. And this is, I'm sure, far more afield than I realize. But of course, I know of people as like Joe Papp and Jerome Robbins, contemporary dance artist, David Gordon, performance artist, all people that, and probably countless others, all people that didn't grow up with a lot of resources, but found their resources at the library, and they went on to do extraordinary things, particularly in the performing arts. So I wanted to in turn just give you that, share that joy and that capacity with you, and that we are happy to be here and help you, whether you come to see us all the time, but you've never interacted with a librarian, or with myself as an educational specialist, or Emma as an oral history specialist, or if you're coming to New York for the first time, particularly after the pandemic, and are just need step by step. We're happy to help you be a better teacher, scholar, and creator. So thank you so much